So you have a product called Cash Manager, and it fully automates petty cash management in organizations. So today, what people speak about when it comes to petty cash management from most of these organizations is, okay, if you need petty cash, then we will send you M-Pesa, you go to Kisumu and you can pay that with that for your boarding.
Hi, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the Nairobi Gold Rush podcast. On the podcast, we're interviewing Nairobi's top tech leaders, entrepreneurs, great business people out there getting the hustle, trying to get the gold out there every single day. We've got a great guest with us today. We're very excited. We've got Geoffrey Maina, and he is an entrepreneur here in Nairobi, and he'll tell us about himself. So maybe, Geoffrey, it's great to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much, Scott. It's really nice to be here. It's my first podcast, so forgive me if I'm a little bit nervous, but so I run a tech company. It's in the Fintech space. It's called Lipad, and we basically help banks and PSPs to roll out merchant solutions in the marketplace. We're a little bit different from the typical fintech in the sense that we don't really see ourselves looking at banks as competition, but we look at banks and PSPs as partners. And we also, on top of just offering a typical payment gateway, we go deeper. One of our products is invoice discounting. We have an e-commerce platform and so on and so forth. We'll get into the details as we get into the podcast.
Yeah, sure. So maybe let's go into the company a little bit and kind of understand, kind of exactly where you fit into the space. So essentially, it sounds like what you're doing is you're connecting maybe companies that want to make payments,
correct,
to banks, or maybe maybe you can describe to us what a PSP is.
Yes. So a PSP is a payment service provider that is licensed by the Central Bank of Kenya and many other regulators, financial regulators and banking regulators across the world. We are not a PSP today, and that's why we choose to partner with banks and licensed PSPs. And what our role is in the marketplace is we see ourselves as the third revolution within the digitization of financial institutions, especially banks. The first wave kind of happened with internet banking, which was there before actually even mobile banking.
Yeah, then it's been around for a long time.
It's been around for a very, very long time. Then the second part came with mobile banking, and mobile banking is very, very popular now. Now, you notice something very interesting here, that a lot of focus is put on the consumer, the end user. So a retail user being able to use a mobile banking app to transact. There's a segment that we saw that is critically underserved, and this is corporate clients.
Okay.
They don't have a lot of tools from banks to be able to conduct their day-to-day businesses. When you talk about petty cash management, everybody, in the marketplace and what banks are offering today, and that's one of the problems we're solving, is, you get B2C transfers to wallets, but businesses need something a little bit more sophisticated than that. There's supply chain financing, that's not really been gotten right in most cases. And that's one of the things that we've really, really specialized in trying to solve. When you look at corporate payments, bill payments with cyclic payments, they need to send out invoices. Those are the solutions that we're building and partnering with banks to roll out in the marketplace.
And are you finding that the big banks that are out there, they just aren't able to offer these solutions by themselves? They kind of need you to create the solution for them, or do they have it and they just have trouble rolling it out? Like, how do you kind of fit into that equation for the corporate clients?
Yeah, so it's a great thing in terms of how the world works, and for a lot of businesses, a lot of people specialization is a big thing. Banks are specialized and they do certain things very, very well. For instance, banks are able to lend very well. They are able to make, wealth and value incredibly well, just managing money. But when it comes to the tech space and innovation, you do find that there's opportunities to partner with people outside that industry, and that's what actually has led to the great adoption for something like mobile banking, for instance. They partner with a lot of institutions to bring this competence and expertise. That said, a lot of banks are actually now transforming and building digital teams within themselves. And we also collaborate with these teams to be able to sort of bring some of these solutions faster to market.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. How has your experience been working with the banks? I know when I typically work with banks, I see them kind of as dinosaurs when it comes to technology, or maybe slow moving. And of course, you're trying to do a entrepreneurial fast startup. How has that experience been?
It's actually, the answer to this is going to be very interesting in the sense that, banks really, they may seem to be slow in execution, but they really want to transform.
Yeah.
The desire is there. When you speak to bankers, they really, really want to transform, and they have big, bold visions. However, it's a highly regulated space. So for any product offering, needs to really be scrutinized. Again, we're dealing with money. So there's all these risk measures that need to be put in place, etc., etc. And as a result, that institution called a bank will inevitably create a lot of processes internally to check products, etc., etc. We find that us coming from outside with a ready-made product, it's a little bit easier, faster for us to get it integrated rather than a bank starting to implement that product from scratch.
And is that one of the reasons you decided not to become like a payment service provider yourself, to make the regulation and overhead a little bit easier for yourself?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a very, very conscious effort on our side because we have a grand vision. We want to be all over Africa. And for us to really do that, we've looked at the journeys of other fintechs who operate directly in the marketplace. Where I'm coming from, where I used to work at Cellulent, we had to go and get licensing in each and every market that we needed to operate in.
And is that every country, basically?
Pretty much, where you want to serve the merchants directly, or else you need to find some sort of partnership, get sponsored, etc., etc. So for us, for the vision that we have and the use cases that we have, there's a lot more people and banks that need our solution than just Kenya. So we've chosen that to be our route to market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know the regulations are very complicated. My company, SafeBoda, we are regulated, I guess kind of like a PSP in Uganda, in the country of
Yes.
Uganda. It's a little bit easier, I think, to get a license maybe in Uganda than in Kenya. And that's where our main market is.
Yeah.
And the problem I found is to do the audits. You have to do regular audits every few months.
Yeah.
And the auditors, they come in and they ask the craziest questions. You
Yeah.
know, they say, okay, we need to see your risk plan, for instance, what risks are you accounting for?
Yeah.
And so you might say, okay, I'm putting a terrorism risk. If somebody blows up the servers, then we have that listed as a risk. And then they say, oh no, well now you don't have a risk for flooding.
Absolutely.
Okay, well we'll put flooding.
Yes.
Oh, now you didn't put one for tornadoes.
I see.
Well, now Kenya doesn't have tornadoes. and so they are always asking these crazy questions. And then you put the risks and they say, okay, well now, I'm the CTO. The CTO didn't sign physically. Maybe you just did a digital signature.
Yeah.
Okay, you sign it. Oh, now it wasn't stamped. In this day and age of digital technology,
Absolutely.
we're still talking about signing papers and stamping and all these crazy things. So that's the frustration I found, is that it's just so much paperwork to have a regulator. So I can see how you guys could be more agile, not having to worry about that, partner with people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That said, though, our platforms are compliant in the sense that we make the journey very easy for the bank to then go and seek the licensing or the approval that they need to operate our products in the marketplace. For instance, for card payments that can be processed on our payment platform, our PSCI, we are PCI DSS compliant, as well as ISO 2007 and 1, and so on and so forth. So we do have also that, because of generally the space that we operate in, we find that we actually need to put in place some of these measures. Although there's now the benefit, as you speak about it, that we can scale a lot faster because we don't have to engage the regulator directly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And how did you come up with the idea to fill this market? Because I know that it seems like quite a competitive market. There's a lot of players out there. How did you find this niche that you wanted to?
Sure. So, and my journey actually to entrepreneurship is a really interesting one because, and I'll sort of take this a little bit back further.
Yeah, sure.
Is in the sense that it hit me when I turned 35 that, hey, I'm working in this startup, fintech, and the statistics, when I looked around, I just realized there's a few guys who are a lot more experienced, but the median age is very low. The
Yeah.
median age was 20, it was 27 at the office. Then I asked myself, where do all these people go?
You notice you're going to become the old guy in the office.
Yeah, so I started asking myself, where do all these people go? Then, I really thought about that question, and I looked around and I figured, you either go work at a bank, or you start your own business, or the worst case happened, you get laid off or something happens. That's the normal cycle in a startup, in a fintech. So I really started to plan my future at that point. And I started to be very, very intentional in starting a business. So started saving up because I also had a path that I had drawn up that for a certain amount of time, based on my experiences and observations, we wouldn't want to seek outside investment for a while.
Right.
So whereas my friends were going out, buying land and acquiring assets in that sense, I was busy saving up, for me to start a venture, and spending a lot of time over the weekends. Instead of going out, I would spend a lot of time at my friend's office, just trying to come up with the plans, interviewing people, going to see people, and so on and so forth. Then, in terms of this specific business, it's based on my experience, looking at having worked in the fintech space, and looking at the journey to market. And at that point, I kind of told myself, okay, I'm a bit of, it's very hard to teach an old dog new tricks. I see a lot of potential within fintech, and I'm going to solve some problems that I see within fintech. However, I'm going to deliberately choose a different path, which is not to be a PSP, but to partner with PSPs and banks. Yeah, there's a lot of PSPs today that are getting licenses and they don't have a ready product. And
Right.
today, happy that a lot of them were onboarding and giving them a white label solution, and some of them are co-branded solution.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so maybe at the time when you decided to start this business,
Yeah.
I guess this is why you're working at Cellulent. Is that
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess Cellulent is sort of a similar company, would you say? Or it's I mean, it operates a little bit different market, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But you kind of learned your skills, or like kind of learned about the market from there, maybe?
Yes. So Cellulent is similar in the sense that the product suite is it's a bit similar. They typically don't go as deep as we are going today, because, for instance, we offer a loan management system that Cellulent offers a payment gateway at the high level, and is direct market facing, meaning they acquire merchants directly, whereas we're partnering with financial institutions to acquire the merchants, and really providing the technical capability and expertise to be able to roll this out.
So maybe just to go back a little bit, where
Yeah.
did you grow up? Where did you come from? How did you get into this space? Because this is like a crazy, like futuristic type of, finance.
Yes. So that's going back where I came from or where I grew up. I'm a really born and bred village boy.
Mm.
You know, it's just very interesting because I came to the city when I was probably 19 or 20
Oh wow.
for the first time.
Yeah. And which part of the country were you in?
So I was born and bred in Kirinyaga,
Uh-huh.
in Central Province. So that's where I was raised with uh, my other three siblings. We are four in the family. And raised in the farm really. So the typical stuff: milking cows, going to the shamba to get napier, and so on and so forth. But it was very clear from back then that I wasn't cut on this because I used to perform so poorly on those chores. And I just figured, man, if I'm in the village, I'm really in trouble because I'll be the poorest. I'll be the
You
least
weren't
productive.
into getting out there with
Yeah, I'm a
the
bit skinny.
animals and the dirt and
Yeah.
everything.
So I'm not as strong as everybody else around me needs to be to thrive there. So it was very clear that I need a way out.
Well, it's interesting to see now that you're in this like kind of high tech
Yeah.
finance industry coming from the village. I know where I'm from in the US and Texas.
Yeah.
I've come from a similar situation, maybe not so much like the village, but a smaller
Yeah.
town.
Absolutely.
And, people, are more country. I would say they have this, it's like working with the animals and working
Yes.
on the farm. And,
Correct.
you don't really see a lot of people go to then say like, oh, I'm running a fintech company and
Sure.
something.
Sure.
So it's quite an amazing journey to see how that happened.
Yeah, I mean it's actually incredible. First of all, when I made the switch, we'll come back to this later. I'll tell you the whole story.
Sure.
I used to be a teacher.
Oh, okay.
So, and that's kind of what you see, the examples that you see around the village, really. So I was hugely I was hugely influenced to go into that industry. But then now I made the switch and I came to the city and I am doing all these things and got into fintech. They know, they can sense because they can see lifestyle and everything. It's a good job. Then I tell them I've quit. I mean, everybody thinks that I've gone mad,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, that seems like a pretty big jump of how'd you go from teaching to fintech? How'd that jump actually happen?
Yeah. So again, coming from the village, and I'm very honest, there's probably very few sort of examples that you can see and look up to. But I've always been a person driven by impact. So it's either I was going to be a doctor or I was going to be really a teacher, influencing my community. I didn't score enough to become a doctor, so the next best thing was for me to become a teacher. So I did that, and I really wanted to. I was very, very passionate. So after my undergrad, I did English and literature actually, to to many people's surprise, really actually. So I went back to the village and I began teaching. But that period of time really impacted me in many ways up until today, because that's when I learned something that I practice today, which is the power of getting a mentor and the power of guidance. Because I used to teach a day school back in Kirinyaga. It's called Gatwe. It's just right next to the forest. In fact, some elephants used to come, and there was some sort of unwritten rule: you need to be in the house by 7:30, 8 p.m. latest.
Yeah. Is that because the elephants would come after you after 8 p.m.?
Absolutely. Sometimes you may actually just find them on the road. It was right next to the forest, so very cold place. But it really taught me because it's a day school. And typically, like in most, unfortunately, in most places, especially in the rural areas, day schools today, you know, students who score well go off to boarding school
Yeah.
and what used to be called high schools
Sure.
back then. And then the guys who don't score very well go to the day schools in the neighborhood, really. So a lot of these students needed a lot of hand holding. Otherwise, they would end up just getting lost. There was a lot of dropouts, etc, etc. So I had to come up with ways, started a book club, started a library, and got some donations and set that up. And it's really because I would see that transformation, and a few of them, once they left, kept in touch. Oh, you really helped me here, etc, etc. So I've really made it a life mission to try and impact people. There's a small cohort of guys that I mentor, and I'm glad to say that so far in my small contribution, even if I am not successful in my fintech, at least I can say that I've helped one or two people to figure out in life, and especially in business, just make forward. So back to how I made the switch. So I went there and I started working. And when I was working, I didn't work for so long actually. I worked for 2 terms.
Okay.
The third term and part of the first term. And then also so from August is usually remedial classes over holidays. That's where I started, and then extended for the third term and then first term. Then I made the switch. What happened is the government actually made a declaration. I remember former President Uhuru Kenyatta was actually the Minister for Finance back then. So I may not look so, but I'm a bit of an old head. Yeah, so he was a finance minister back then, and part of the austerity measures, you remember, he's the guy, you may not have been here, but he made this declaration and this move where part of the austerity measures, ministers would drive Volkswagen Passats.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of outcry, public outcry, ministers saying, oh, it's so small, can't. But those measures were, they were far reaching. So within the education sector, he said that teachers won't be employed. They'll give teachers contracts for 3 years. And even after the 3 years, you won't be guaranteed of a job.
Oh, wow.
You'll basically wait to see if you get another contract. And so I was a bit sad. I was very passionate about this profession, but I really saw that it was a bit of an unfair hand that we were given.
Very uncertain.
Very uncertain. You can't plan your future. I had a whole plan of. By the time I was in those 2 terms, I was already HOD for the creatives department. I had a whole plan thought out how I'll get my master's, etc, etc. However, and this is why it's important to have plan A and plan B. Okay, so for me, coming out of campus, I left campus in 2009. I had 2 options and 2 things that I knew. If I'll try teaching, if it doesn't work out, if I feel I'm not happy, I'll go to BPO. So I decided I need to make this switch. I had read incredibly so much about BPO, and I knew something in me was telling me this is the next thing. This was the time that Bitangen Demo was a PS in ICT, and we were starting Konza project. He was a champion for that, and one of the flagship projects was BPO, making Kenya the new center, new capital for BPO. Why? Because we have a neutral accent, or we may like to think that it's not as heavy, and we are centrally placed, so time zone issues not so much, especially for Europe. And there's a great pool of talent. A lot of people, graduates, you can find easily at an affordable price, etc, etc. So I'd read a lot for that sector. So I honed in on it. Luckily, I only had to do 2 applications. I was very lucky in that sense, but I was prepared. And this is why what I keep telling people, the only thing that you need to do is, the hardest part is to get picked and get into the room. The minute you should be so confident, so sure, so prepared that the only thing that you need to do is to get into the room. And I really, really needed this. So I remember when I came, I hadn't told even my folks. I remember we used to be put in a small waiting room, a lot of us, like 25 or so, and everybody would get in and then they would come out and say, I've been told to go wait for some feedback. I'll get to hear feedback by Friday, and so on and so forth. So I got in, I did my pitch, I told them about how this industry is going to change, how many jobs are going to create and whatnot. I mean, they gave me the job immediately.
Wow.
So when I got out, I was telling guys, okay, me, I've been told to report on Monday. I don't know
crazy.
about you guys. Talking about wait for feedback till next week. And that's how the switch happened.
Yeah. And you were
Yeah.
already in Nairobi by this time?
No, I was still up country, so I had to go, quit my job with a week's notice. Very unfortunate, but I really didn't have a choice. Good thing is that I had built a good relationship, so they understood and they kind of knew my head teacher is called Mr. Oboya. He really knew that I needed to make the change because I had told him this, I can't build my life like this. Oh, and I forgot, I should have mentioned my sister-in-law. I credit her, one of the people, apart from Uhuru, one of the people who made me make the switch.
Yeah.
When she heard I had chosen to do education, when we used to meet over, holidays, she used to tease me, you're going to be, I'm sure you're not going to be satisfied. But I told her, no. Then those words kept ringing back. Nothing wrong with doing teaching. I think I would have been incredibly successful given the track record and the vision that I had.
I wonder why she felt that you wouldn't be satisfied because she just tell your personality or something.
Maybe, yeah, because actually something else in campus, when I left home, I left home at 18. I finished my high school a bit early. I pretty much almost never went back. To be honest, every holiday I was working.
Oh,
So I got a
really?
job. I actually never went back home after I finished campus.
Yeah.
After I got into campus.
Yeah, I usually hear guys when like the end of the year comes, everybody's going up country.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that wasn't you though. You were just
No,
working the whole time.
I was working the whole time. I was trying to run various businesses. I used to I used to DJ back in campus. We used to run a small DJing unit to organize parties.
Were you famous at the time for at the campus? Like you're
Yeah,
one
I
of
would say a little bit, but
yeah.
I'm more of a background person and I'm not very, very outgoing in that sense, like very social, but I have ways that I deal with that. So I partnered with someone who is very outgoing and very social. I would do more of the logistics and planning and so on and so forth. So I think it's from that she's so, working within the civil service, and she didn't mean it in a bad way.
Right, sure.
When you work within civil service, and this is not only for teachers, it's anyone, even in government.
Yeah.
The model for climbing up the ranks is often, and this is what she was explaining to me, is often not so much about how much you're bringing and how much value you're creating. It's more about how much time have you spent. Promotions are based on experience in terms of basically you spend 5 years in this grade, then you go to the next grade, then you go to school, you do your master's or you do your doctorate, then that sort of gives you, it's not like the private sector.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if you bring a lot of money into the company or
Exactly.
very successful,
I mean,
then
your
you can
value
grow
is
quickly.
very, very clear. Your
Yeah.
value is so clear within the private sector. That's it. There's a lot of guys who do well in government, but it has certain constraints. And if you don't network very well, if you're not very, very good at networking and, sort of touching the right buttons, you can be frustrated within public sector.
Yeah, sure. It makes sense. I've lived in Kenya for 12 years now. But
Yes.
before I came to Kenya,
Yeah.
I worked in the government for quite a while for the U.S. government for quite a few years. And I do think, the personality shift is quite different between the government and particularly here in East Africa. I mean, here in East Africa, to be doing the type of thing you're doing, you kind of have to have the pioneering attitude, I would say.
Absolutely.
You're on the cutting edge. You have to be moving quickly. And a lot of people that work in the government, it can be a good job. It can pay good money,
Yeah.
and it's very stable sometimes as long as you don't have uh, the contract thing like they were doing with the teachers. But if you get in a job,
Yeah.
it can be very stable, good
Absolutely.
benefits,
Yeah.
good progression. But it's just a very different mentality and mindset, right, of what
Sure.
you're looking for in life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not everybody wants to go out and take the risks, I guess, to
Absolutely.
be out there and
Yeah.
taking on the challenges. Some people they want to be
They want to be
stable.
stable. Yeah.
Yeah, they want, and
Yeah.
that can be good for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but
Yeah.
you decided, okay, your sister-in-law, you say, is saying, no, isn't for you
Yeah, because she
teaching.
could see my personality. She could see that, I'm quite active. I'm all over the place. I'm trying to run this. I used to sell books. I used to hawk actually, when I was in campus. And I used to, the one friend of mine, a lady friend of mine in campus told me, you really are looking for, you need to be satisfied with this thing. You don't need to look for money every time.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what's wrong with that.
Wow.
Yeah, but I used to hawk books, very profitable actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we used to have a calendar for all the visiting days for schools,
Mhm.
and there was this revision material. Would get it for 250 shillings or 300, some of them if they had the hardcover, and then travel and go and sell them for 800, 900, evening price, cut it down to do a very, very big discount to the parents for 600.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, used to be a very profitable venture for
Yeah.
us. So, did a couple of those things.
Yeah, I think you
Yeah.
can tell with guys that are going to be in the entrepreneurial route, kind of running these businesses in the campus. I know that was one business I did when I was in campus is, students would come from maybe up country or somewhere, and they're coming to a new campus and they
Yeah.
don't have a lot of items that they need. Maybe they need, like maybe a soufflerie or something to cook
Yeah.
with, or they
Yeah.
need, um, a blanket or
Correct.
different things that you need for campus.
Yes.
And so, what I started a company with some people where we would go and buy all of these items. And so when the student would arrive at campus, there would be their bed,
Yeah.
and the items would just be right there. They could order kind of online at the time.
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
and I'd make a little money,
Yeah.
here and there, just kind of hustling to sell,
Absolutely.
in campus.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of qualities you see when guys are doing that in school that kind of says, here's the path you're going to be taking.
Yes.
Well, one thing you did mention is like when you finally decided to, run your business while other guys were out there, kind of partying, and
Yeah.
you have to give up the Tusker and the
Yeah.
whiskeys and everything to save up your money for your company. Is that kind
Yes.
of like what you saw? You go for like the DJ lifestyle.
Yeah.
Now you're having to
Yeah.
set aside your nights and weekends
Yeah.
to save up.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. Did you find that challenging, or it just part of your natural character?
I would say actually it's more, no, it wasn't challenging because I never really enjoyed that life,
Yeah.
to be quite frank.
Yeah.
I'm a very social, drinker, for instance.
Hmm.
Maybe once in 3 months at a party, and it's very, very light.
Yeah.
Um, so no, it was not a struggle. It was just now more purposeful. I'll tell you something else that I did when I was sort of deciding very, very intentionally that I need to start a business. I switched off my LinkedIn.
Oh, okay. Why would you switch off your LinkedIn at that time?
I didn't want to get confused.
Yeah.
Because if you work for a successful Pan-African business, there's going to be, and you're raising up, you're constantly getting promoted. That attracts a lot of headhunters from good companies, very, very good pay. And I found myself in one or two interviews, or one or two sort of inquiries, exploratory sessions, and I just told myself, no, this is just going to derail me.
Mhm.
So I just killed it for about 2.5 years until
Wow.
my exit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite wild. I mean, yeah. And to think of the offers that you would probably be giving up sometimes as they would come, and um, but I guess you have the longer term game in mind. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So I just switch it off. Most headhunting today, actually, I believe pretty much all of it is today happening on LinkedIn. Yes, I would be asked through my networks, oh, there's this opportunity there and that, but primarily today, the sort of almost number one place where you will see jobs. So there's two things. You will see opportunities, or opportunities will come to you. So I realized that's LinkedIn. So I just had to cut it.
Oh yeah.
That was one of the steps that I made. Then every weekend I would spend time at my friend's office, just trying to really plan. Um, Also, do a lot of consulting, helping other businesses set up, from an advisory point of view. And also the other thing, which is a big interest of mine, is, like I said, there's mentorship, and then there's also investments. So I am a pretty big risk taker
Uh-huh. Nice.
for businesses, but it's turned out pretty well because I'm also very active as a board member,
Okay.
in any business. So it's turned out well. There's some that we've missed, some that are going really
I
well.
guess that's the investor game, right? You
Absolutely.
win some, you lose some.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. So that's really, really actually what's really even supported me. I was like, okay, fine, I'll lose my job. I'll quit my job, lose this income, but then I have these savings. I'll try to make the company work. If it doesn't work, there's still some dividends that I get from some of these good investments that I made along the way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you could tell us a little bit then, fill in the gaps between, okay, you're doing this teaching thing, and then at some point you joined Cellulent, right? Which I
Yes.
haven't really kept up with Cellulent the last couple of years, but
Yeah.
I know when I first came to Kenya, probably, around the times you were working there,
Yeah.
it was seemed like a pretty big, very popular, I guess, startup company at the time, or growing
Correct.
company.
Yeah.
So maybe tell us, like, what was that like working there, and what did your career look like? Because I think you spent a long time there.
Yes, yes, yes. So, I mean, Cellulent is an incredible, incredible company, especially in terms of honing entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
There's a popular saying that there's the Cellulent Mafia going round,
Really?
just like the PayPal Mafia,
Hmm.
just because of the number of entrepreneurs that have come out, and especially I would say it is people that worked for the founder,
Hmm.
who's Ken Njoroge.
Yeah.
Incredible, incredible visionary, Pan-African, and just a very, very good founder.
Yeah.
So he instilled a lot of responsibilities in the teams. He was able to really inspire you. I mean, this is the kind of leader that you you have to really, when you experience him and when you're working with him, you can really fight for him. And then gives you a lot of responsibility, doesn't care about your age, doesn't care about your background. So long as he sees a spark,
Hmm.
then off you go. So I was fortunate enough to meet him in that era. He's now exited the business
Hmm.
and learned a ton during that time. Yeah, I remember when I joined. So when I left the call center, I don't know if but we'll go back to that.
Yeah.
But when I joined Cellulent, I was actually meant to become. I was coming in to do a product manager for their VAS division. They have Cellulent has kind of maybe four businesses in one. So that division, but quickly after a few interviews, a few onboardings, a few people said, this guy maybe, let's put him in this new project that we wanted to do, which is monetizing the banks,
Hmm.
really. So went there, got this, didn't have a team, had to recruit a team again. You learn how to recruit because HR is not really helping you a lot. Um, they will help with a little bit of sourcing, but for you to really get the best candidates, you really have to be hands-on. And that's one of the things that Ken told me. You really cannot delegate this thing for recruitment. As if you're managing a unit, a business unit, and I was 27, 28 at that time, you really have to know everybody that's coming into that organization. So you have to allocate time about 1 day a week, pretty much. You can spread it out, but when you're really building it, you really have to spend time trying to interview the talent and convincing the talent to come in.
Sure.
And that's whether it's internal talent or external talent. So big lesson there. So built up that team. It was called the activation team, but really what we were supposed to do was to go out and we had acquired a lot of banks, but the monetization model was we get paid per transaction. So there was a lot of dormancy, lots of issues with people not getting to know their pins and so on and so forth. And we built processes and systems to help solve that. One of which is an incredible analytics, data analytics platform and automated messaging and marketing platform that we built in-house from scratch.
Yeah. How did you think you got the ability to do this at such a young age? I mean, you mentioned you were quite a young guy.
Yeah.
And you seem like you're given a lot of responsibility. Do you think it's the founder who kind of believed in you to take that on, or other mentors in the company?
Yeah. So it's just the attitude. I wouldn't say it's only Ken. I would say it's Ken and the DNA that he built in the company. That's why I say I'm incredibly grateful and incredibly thankful and honored that I spent that time with him. It's just the attitude and the DNA that was in the company. If you're capable and if you're a big dreamer, if you're a hard worker, you need to work hard. You need to kick ass. You need to really be able to turn it up, spend as much time as it's required. It's not a rule that you have to spend long hours at work, but often you'll find that if you have that drive in you, you'll spend whatever time it takes. You'll find yourself working over the weekends, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't bother you.
Yeah.
So everybody else, his management team had that DNA. Even the country managers that one of my good friends and actually even mentor now. Although he's just maybe 1 or 2 years older than me, but has a lot of experience, especially running big organizations and functions. He got a country manager role at, I think he was maybe 24, 23, 24 there.
Wow.
Yeah. So doesn't always happen. So he would mix experience with youth, but not afraid when there is potential to throw the responsibility. And that's something I carry and I practice a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned this Cellulent Mafia that's there. Do you
Yes.
still keep in contact with these guys? Did you get to know them well?
Absolutely, especially now that I'm out here. I need to sort of egg my name and prove that I can join that club. But so far, I can say it's going very well. We are on the right track because we've already been sort of 6-7 months, in terms of since we launched the product.
Yeah.
And having signed up a couple of customers and we have live transactions, I think that's really good traction.
Yeah.
So yes, I do keep track with them and I learn from them a lot because especially the mistakes. I'm more interested in the mistakes.
Yeah.
than
Do you have any examples of like crazy
Yeah.
mistakes you can talk about that
Yeah.
particularly like you saw that impacted your thinking?
Sure. So like I'll talk about some mistakes generally in life, especially investments. Let me even just talk about that. So investments, I was very keen. Like I said, my friends and from the village, almost everyone is running to buy plots in Kamulu, plots in Juja Farm, plots in. I bought a few, but I'm also a very frugal spender. I'm not very extravagant,
Sure.
and the pay at Cellulent was decent, was good. So I would save up a lot. And I was also quite financially disciplined. So I made a bad investment if you don't pick out the right partners, if you don't look at who are the kind of people that you're getting in bed with, it doesn't matter whether the idea is world changing. You'll not go anywhere.
Yeah.
So it was incredibly frustrating to not share the same goals and visions, and we ended up burning quite a tidy amount of money.
And is this kind of like that idea you were talking about when it comes to recruiting and
Yeah,
you want to really take that time to
absolutely.
learn the people that you're going to be working with?
Yeah, learn and sell the vision to them.
Yeah.
Make sure that they're locked in. Make sure that they kind of share the same vision. I would say another part for recruitment really is even your founders. You really need to sell to them if they really need to forego a lot for them to join you in this journey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And how has it been with your company? I mean, do you have some co-founders? Like, what's the setup of the company?
Yeah, so we're four co-founders in the company, but I came up with the thought first. Came up with like I was saying, I already had a bulletproof plan in place. So I would think.
Yeah.
I had already even sounded out some few customers here and there. I was very careful to make sure that it's not the same book that was in Cellulent just before I left.
Yeah.
So I targeted microfinances
Mm-hmm.
to ask them if they have some of the needs that I thought that would be a good fit before we go to the big banks.
Yeah.
And sort of right around the same time that one of them was confirming, I pulled the trigger and I exited. So I have a chairman who I would call him a founder, though he's the chairman of our board, because he's actually the gentleman who's who actually acts as an active sounding board.
Yeah.
Today, we don't have the luxury of a non-active or a non-executive sort of chairman.
Sure.
So we have him, but mainly for compliance, regulatory, and things like those. And then I have a CTO who I had to really, really convince. And then I have a head of design. We are very driven in terms of our products need to look good. They need to be very functional. They need to solve problems easily. That's a must for us, because typically what you find in this kind of space is that especially the corporate solutions, they are very clunky.
Yeah.
Even today, I'm not throwing any shade, but if you get a business and ask them their experience in using the M-Pesa G2 platform, yeah,
I know about that one.
Yes, it's not the best. So these corporate users have actually been sort of mishandled or neglected for a long time in terms of the tools that they're given. You find, so they'll go and get a tool, but it will only do a quarter or a third of the functionality that they need. Then they have to resort to all these manual paperwork. I'll give you an example of the problem we're solving with the cash manager. So you have a product called Cash Manager, and it fully automates petty cash management in organizations. So today, what people speak about when it comes to petty cash management from most of these organizations is, okay, if you need petty cash, then we will send you M-Pesa, you go to Kisumu and you can pay that with that for your boarding. But really, what the accountant is left to do is to fill in some vouchers, and you need to come back with a receipt. So the solution we have is that it's digital wallets, so that you're given your money in your digital wallet, then you can spend that money. After you spend that money, you can take a photo of the receipt. All that is reconciled and put in a dashboard that can also be integrated back to the organization's ERP. And guess what? If you don't spend your money, all of it, is still available for the company to claw it back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, it's kind of amazing to me in today's world that a lot of the companies haven't digitized in that way.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like such a novel concept, but I can think of so many examples here of like bad systems. I mean, you mentioned the Safaricom ones, like not ideal, but I mean, like even let's say with the government, the e-citizen. I don't know if you've dealt much with the e-citizen website, but oh, it's so terrible. And you know, the system you can't even log in. I had to do a critical thing on e-citizen, and I tell the people, I can't log on to your website. I mean, I can't. I try to get in here. They just said it's completely down, and they say, well, we'll log on at 1 a.m. Wait till after midnight.
I see.
And then you log in, and then you can imagine also the crazy things like you know, you go to get an ID card, and they need passport photos, and they need physical thumbprints. Even just a few years ago, you had to do the ink. You know, they would put the ink fingerprints every time. So you know, I could imagine maybe getting a new photo, but how are your fingerprints changing every time you get a new ID? And the ones on the fingerprint card that nobody's looking at. And I just imagine maybe somewhere down at Nyayo House, there's like rooms full of papers just stacked in boxes everywhere that nobody's ever looked at, right?
Sure.
So you can, I mean, I just imagine this world of like, you know, why is it not digitized? You know, why do you need stamps? Why do you need all these things? And then today's world. So it looks like you guys are bridging that gap now.
Absolutely.
Like
So we are. So maybe I just come back to the e-citizen part. You know, I have to sort of save their face a little bit.
Yes,
They are ex-Cellulent, so one of the some of the Cellulent Mafia.
So some of your mafia, some of your mafia guys. Well, I think it's good for people to. I think it's like interesting for them to know. But these are the mafia guys that you know.
Absolutely. So I mean, if you look at their journey, it's actually quite impressive. They came with an MVP that was only one department, then quickly became scaled out. I know today that they've really redesigned a lot of processes, and they're in version 2, but there's a lot of gaps in the initial version of the product, but a lot of improvements for version 2. And they have some of the most hardworking people there, in terms of, if you look at their level of success, for a lot of businesses, and this again goes back to the DNA.
Yeah, sure.
For a lot of businesses that get to that level of success, you find that a lot of the founders take a back seat, or go to enjoy, you know, sort of take an early retirement, so to speak. But these guys, I know some of them.
They're really trying.
They are really.
Well, and what I would say,
they're still doing the 1 a.m. shift. Till date.
Well,
but they are involved in they are involved in a highly controversial industry, and I keep telling them, hey, this one is you're gonna be in the news for a long time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yes.
And what I would say about this is that, you know, when I first started coming to Kenya, I mean, we didn't have e-citizen when I first came to Kenya. And so back in those days, even the small things like the IDs, particularly the work permits, these type of things that I'd have to get. Very challenging.
Absolutely.
Without a digital system. Because now there was no digital record. So, you know, everybody in the government has to have their money. You know. So you can't go to any government office. Like I would have to come with an agent or somebody. Because I don't like pay those type of bribes and things. So
absolutely,
you have to have like somebody who's dealing in those things that you don't know what's happening, you know. So and it would be so frustrating, just days and days and days of sitting there at Nyayo House and different places. So once we got e-citizen, I think maybe that's kind of like the controversial part, right? It's like a lot of those channels started maybe shifting or going away, the power balance. So these guys, I can see that they're probably really trying, and it's way better than it was.
Sure.
But it just shows, like I say, I think there's so much to be done. Right. I mean, you know, we have to have uptime, and I mean, I understand the challenges. When I first took over CTO of SafeBoda, you know, ride hailing company. You know, when I first started, we'd have massive crashes for hours.
I see.
You have you have a ride hailing app, right? You've got drivers, they need to be making money and moving. And the system crashes. You know, and you're new, you don't know
Yeah.
How do I restore this massive thing?
Yeah.
So we spent many times, but now yeah, we have a stable platform.
I
It,
see.
it takes that real focus to like say, hey, we need stability.
I see.
You know,
How do you guys manage that variance in demand and those surges actually?
oh, surges in traffic.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it takes a lot of architectural design, right?
Uh-huh.
The one thing we did, and maybe this gets a little technical for the audience, but when you first build an application, you build something called a monolithic application. So you
Yeah.
put your code out on a server.
Yeah.
You have an app, and it's just like there. And the way I look at it is it's like a single cell organism,
Yeah.
right? It's good, it functions all together, but if any kind of chemical or something gets it, it's done. It just
Yeah.
crashes.
Yeah.
And that's similar to what we had when I started at SafeBoat. We had this monolithic application. So very easy to manage, but it couldn't handle the demand, the spikes in demand, everything like that. So the rush hour would happen 5 p.m. Everybody starts getting rides. It goes up, and then it finally just gets to a point where it just crashes, kind of like your heartbeat's going so fast and it just gives out.
I see.
So what we did is we started separating out a lot of the different components. We call it microservice architecture.
I see.
And this is something that you have to be quite big to be able to do. It's not
Yeah.
something that as a small company you would take on, but it's basically saying, okay, I need to give somebody a price. Okay, that's going to be on the server over here.
Yeah.
I need to give somebody a promotion code. Okay, the promotion codes are going to be over here.
Yeah.
I need to find the driver. Okay, the matching for the driver is happening here. So you break it into these smaller pieces, and now some of these small pieces are going to crash.
Yeah.
Right? The promotion code is going to crash.
Yeah.
But if the promotion code crashes, okay, you just don't give a promotion code that hour, right?
Yeah.
But you're still doing rides.
Yeah.
So you focus all your energy on the key components. So kind of like when you have a body, you're not so worried about your finger, but you really need to concentrate on the heart.
Yeah.
So you figure the components you want to concentrate on, and scale that. Make sure that the key components are really operating well. And it's not that you ignore the other parts. You have to make sure they're doing well, but you can kind of put your energy and control things in a more sophisticated way. So that's what we had to do to handle those spikes because they can really overwhelm the system. But in fintech, it's also a big problem, right?
It's also a big problem. But I've always been fascinated to know how, because I know the swings in ride hailing can be very, very you'll be quiet and then it rains, then all of a sudden without warning. Within fintech, you sort of are able to plan well because the holiday season is coming and there's end month is coming and but for ride hailing can happen anytime.
And it can be very hectic. I remember it was my daughter's 16th birthday. I just started for SafeBoda. And the guys, I was heading to the birthday party for my daughter, and the guys called me. The system's crashed. No, the riders are about to riot. They're showing up at the office. They're about to revolt. It's just crazy. You can't be down on a ride hailing app. I mean, even with finance applications, it's you don't really want to be down.
I see.
But you have drivers out there, and drivers do not take lightly to missing their money.
Yeah.
So and I think that crash was like 6 hours.
Yeah.
Where we have to have every minute is accounted for in my job. Every minute's accounted for, even every second. So I had to spend a lot of time.
Okay.
And that's where with these tech companies, I mean, there's this balance, right? You have to know the business side. You have to know the financial institutions, the banks,
absolutely,
the regulations, the risks.
Yeah.
And then also you have to kind of build that team to also really know the architectural tech side. So for my role, I'm CTO, so I focus on mainly the tech, hiring tech people, mentoring tech people, understanding the architectural side.
Yeah.
But in a startup, you're doing everything, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's good, and the reason why I asked you that question is just to sort of sense check. We've also built our platform to be highly scalable. We from day one, just because of the audience that we serve, and we have quite a number of products that we have taken to the marketplace. So it's quite broad. So we have broken it down into microservices, and just to make sure that we can actually be able to scale. Nobody wants to have customers live and then the thing breaks, you know.
exactly.
Yeah, so it's one of the things that I also carry from this other life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and it's tricky because with startups, the decisions, you're making from the ground up, and
yeah,
these decisions have really big impacts.
yeah,
You choose the wrong direction technically, or you pick the wrong partner,
yeah,
it's going to
absolutely.
kill your
I mean,
business,
it's
and you
gonna
don't
kill
have a lot
you.
of room for error.
Absolutely. Yeah. So and you find that in a lot of but you really need to get the fundamentals just right
Yeah.
from day one. So
Sure.
nice design helps to be very, very thoughtful. Like today, one of the things that really sort of getting into business, I would say one of the biggest fears that I have today is I read a quote. I can't really remember who it was from some time back, and I've really kept it at the back of my mind. That the most businesses don't die out of starvation;
Mm-hmm.
they die out of indigestion.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. Can you explain
it is
maybe?
actually quite incredible.
Mhm.
Um, and there was and I remember this was I really dug into this and also studied the story for Lego. They were in a lot of trouble some time back, and then they really had to reinvent themselves. The story here is when if you're a business and you have too many opportunities, too many things you're trying to do, it's likely that's going to be your downfall.
Mhm.
Um, on the flip side, because you're not able to really focus, you're not able to really do the thing that you need to do.
Mhm.
But on the flip side, having come out and being an entrepreneur, coming out to this world where it's very, very competitive, we haven't raised, so we're using our savings, um, generating revenue, but still burning cash. We have this constant pressure to
Mhm.
generate revenue. You will be given all manner of opportunities. I can kid you not. I have been, and the other thing is when you're into tech, a lot of people don't really understand what kind of tech you do.
Yeah.
So you try to explain you do fintech, but every other person tells their friend, "Oh yeah, that guy is a developer.
Mhm.
Oh, that guy,
Yeah.
they build systems."
Yeah.
So people come to you with, "Oh, I need a website. We can't do websites.
Yeah.
That's fine."
I don't do websites.
But
Yeah.
then somebody else comes, "Oh, we need to do this fancy system." The craziest that we've gotten asked to do is like is actually like an ambulance management platform, and it was a project with a lot of cash. Then just looked at it and just let it
Yeah. It
pass.
seems like it's outside of your expertise. Or,
Absolutely,
yeah.
but these things can really, really be a distraction. That quote really tries to keep me grounded, even though there is a big need for us to generate uh, huge revenues.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, it's interesting, to think about that because, focus is really important
yeah,
for companies, I
yeah,
think. And I think that's where a lot of companies go wrong. And I would kind of relate it to I've seen some guys who come to me
mhm,
and they're always jumping around from idea to idea.
sure,
They always have a different scheme they want to do.
yes,
Now I need to buy property.
yes,
Now I need to sell smokies on the side of the road.
yeah,
Oh, if I just had bananas, I could really get a good thing.
yeah,
Now I need to sell clothes.
yeah,
Whatever it is, it always are jumping from unrelated scheme to scheme. It's because they want to chase money,
sure,
but they're not really passionate about any of these ideas.
yeah,
And the same way kind of comes in the corporate world
yeah,
or the startup where
yeah,
you've had your vision, like you mentioned,
yeah,
you knew the market you wanted to go after,
mm,
right? And there are other opportunities you can probably pursue that are in relation to the business that you're doing,
Absolutely.
right? So there's growth there. And I think that's what's critical is like what you're mentioning is that balance of you need to have momentum, is what I
Sure.
always say. That's an important thing I learned is that, you don't get momentum from staying still, right?
Yeah.
And the way I kind of liken as I think about maybe the company Apple, right? They had
Yes.
this guy, Steve Jobs.
Yes.
So Steve Jobs, when he came back to Apple, he started they had the computer.
Yeah.
Then he did the iPod.
Yeah.
Then it's the iPhone. Then it's
Yes.
the iPad. Then it's
Yeah.
the this and the that. And he's always releasing something.
Yes.
And every time he goes out and makes a speech, they get momentum.
Sure.
Right? It's like a big
Absolutely.
lorry going down the track, right?
Absolutely.
It's just like a ball rolling, and it's nobody stopping it because it's always something new.
Yes.
But everything was in sort of relation to each other. I mean, you look at an iPhone, just a bigger iPod with a screen and a cell phone, and then the next iPad, just an iPhone but with a bigger screen, and but they were all innovative, right?
Yeah.
But it was all in the same sphere of what these guys knew how to do.
Yeah.
Because they were making human interface type of devices, and
Yeah.
so I guess my point is like, as a company, you need that momentum, and you need to be able to shift sometimes and take on new projects, new things. But same thing. Steve Jobs wasn't building an ambulance
Yes.
system
Absolutely.
or something. So
Yeah.
so it's
Absolutely. You
very
really need to be focused,
yeah.
and you also really need to instill this thing, and that's why for me, it's really big to have the right DNA in the company and the right culture.
Yeah.
You really have to instill this, and I find one of the biggest things that you have to really instill is like the ability for like big products, these great products that you just spoken about, the iPad, etc. You'll be shocked that some of the guys who contributed some of the best ideas were sort of almost like from the unexpected quarters.
Yeah.
Sort of build that culture where communication can happen and contribution can happen from anyone regardless. I remember, if I take you back to the call center when I joined, so I was very, very excited, very, very energetic. I really knew that this is going to be the thing that really, really puts Kenya on the map. And I really wanted to. I could see myself as being one of the guys in 5 years running a 1,000 seat call center. I was really, really bold. And I used to tell people, this thing is coming, Konza is coming, and Konza, we're going to fill it with these BPO centers. Never happened. The project, actually, Konza is not yet launched even today, but properly. There's just a few government offices there, but really not so much private enterprise happening there. And this is 15 years later. So big lesson there in terms of how government projects work.
Yeah. Why do you think those never took off? Do you have any ideas or?
A lot of factors. I think the dream for Konza, I still believe that it is a very, very good initiative. And this is going to be a controversial view. You can't have your cake and eat it.
Yeah.
Right? So in Africa, if you look at I kind of actually fall in some school of thought where I think in Africa today, we need like a longer serving government, like what's happening in Rwanda. I think we can see in projects like this, if you have the right leadership, there's a question definitely whether each regime that comes in, is it the one? And I think it's a journey for us until we get there, because we don't seem to be very mature as a country to handle very close election cycles, because it's elections, then after 2 years, right now, people are already campaigning for 2027. So you can bet that there's going to be very little focus to really actually make an impact and develop the country. That's unfortunate, and that's what's been happening for so long. So you have these grand projects that are very good on paper, they get launched, but the government's preoccupation very soon after they start has to go into survival mode because they need to get back into power.
Yeah.
So a lot of these projects get defunded. They just, and then because they're not receiving a lot of scrutiny from, and this is controversial, they're not receiving a lot of scrutiny from the authorities that be, they end up not getting a lot of attention, and then there's a lot of funny things that happen there.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, and
Yeah,
then
we understand.
yes, there's and it's not just, I'm not talking about Konza. It's just
Right.
we've seen this.
Yeah.
We've seen this with the Tanzania has overtaken us with the SGR. They're connecting. Tanzania is very strategically placed. They have 8 neighbors.
Yeah.
But we were pioneering. They've stolen our match for the SGR.
Yeah.
We had the Northern Corridor. That's why LAPSET in Lamu was set up, going all the way to Juba. That's not happened. There's a lot of good things that were done on paper, including now Konza. So these projects have taken so long to materialize, and the private sector kind of moves on. We've seen hubs set up in Nairobi for Microsoft, for Google.
Yeah.
Ideally, those hubs should have been set up in Konza. But because the projects took so long, and BPO, and unfortunately, at that point, I remember in 2012, there was even a famous article that was written, for how long will Kenya be the next center for the next big thing?
Yeah.
It has to happen at some point.
At some point.
The next big thing in BPO. So the industry kind of moved on, and I'm glad, just seeing the investments that CCI are currently doing in the country. They have a huge center out in Tatu City. They used to be in Westlands. I've sort of been angling and keeping an eye to that industry. And it's now happening, but it's happening in Tatu. Should have happened in Konza.
Yeah.
So private sector will move on, and then you're left with a project that kind of doesn't have uptake, but it's because it's taken so long.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, how do you find things compared to maybe when you saw that 2012 article? Do you think that Kenya's on the way to be the next big thing, or?
I could have agreed. I could agree. I could see that everything in our article was actually the truth. You can't hold potential forever. You can't keep people in anticipation. You can't do teasers forever. Those are the teasers that the government was doing, that it's the next big thing. We're building this thing. There's just going to be fatigue and wane, and people are going to move on and look for other solutions. So I agreed. I could look at it and I agreed. And for me, actually, I think one of the things, I'm not very patient. So
Yeah.
I quickly just moved on to telecoms, which was my next thing. But within that, I'm very proud of my time there, and it really taught me a lot of life lessons when I was in the call center as a very junior guy.
Yeah. And what type of lessons were you learning there? I mean, was it about taking the calls or managing people? Like what?
I would actually say the two most transformational things happened at the beginning of my career. So one, when I was a teacher and I saw the power of mentorship. So I seek it constantly, and I also seek out people who are interested to walk the journey with me. And I have a small cohort. Then the other thing was just add value, man. Just be obsessive about your job, add value, and it will pay off. So when I joined, very junior guy. So we used to, I remember I joined the Telcom account. So Telcom account was quite nasty.
Yeah.
It was the worst.
Yeah. It was like in terms of the people who were calling in.
It was actually orange back then.
Yeah, I remember that one.
So that account used to have landlines. And landlines, sorry to say, they get disconnected, and then sometimes they can go for 6 months without getting fixed.
And how does that happen, do you think? I mean, that
I
seems
mean,
kind
it's
of
part
crazy.
of the, it's Orange is part government owned, and so there's
Yeah.
going to be a lot of inefficiencies
Everybody's
there. There's
moving
going to
fast.
be,
Yeah.
granted also, there's also going to be budget issues. They'll need some spare parts. There's a whole procurement process. They're not as efficient as a private entity.
Yeah.
Okay. So you get that call, and a lot of the guys that would call in were from Westlands, Parklands. So we used to say, ha, I've gotten a Mr. Patel.
Yeah.
So when Mr. Patel would really, really give it to you,
He would not be. He would not be happy.
you would not be
My
happy.
phone hasn't been working for
And they're
4
paying
months. Yeah.
every month.
I'm paying every month.
They're paying because it's a subscription, just to be postpaid, and there's a minimum fee. So, I mean, you spend on that call 10 minutes just listening and sort of trying to tell this guy, oh, I'm sorry, etc, etc. So I joined when the average handling time was 3 minutes, was 180 seconds.
Yeah.
That's on average how much we were spending on a call with a customer.
Yeah.
So some calls are lower, but you can imagine some calls are going for 10 minutes, 15. There were some records of 30 minutes. Somebody just absolutely ranting and furious and very frustrated.
Yeah.
But I realized, okay, fine, we're gonna have these. Let me just use the word we used to use. You're gonna get this Patel very frustrated because they are running a business, or they are running a factory, and their factory line is not working. So they will be very pissed at you. So you're gonna get that guy, and it's going to take however long it will take. But in the meantime, there's going to be these guys who need some very, very simple things. And I remember there used to be a script. I don't know who had written it. To some of the guys who had come before. It was very, very long. And in a call center, you have to read the script and almost like very robotically go through the thing. And that's what we were trained to do. But I was there, sitting there, 3 weeks old in the company, and I was, hey, this is wrong. So I completely redid the script, gave a proposal to my boss, and I told him, hey, I think if we do this script, it's going to dramatically reduce our handling time. He looked at it. Good thing that he was a considerate guy. Very good guy. His name is Geoffrey Odongo. And he took it up, told his boss, and we tried it out. I trained guys, very newbie. And remember, call center, I'm getting in. There's guys who've been in that space for the last 2 years, picking calls.
So you're the new guy.
I'm the new guy. And then that thing works like nobody's business. I did a presentation. Oh, I forgot. The way I presented the idea, and I didn't know how to use PowerPoint.
Yeah.
So I watched some videos. The good thing is that there was internet at the office and during the lunch breaks. So you get 15 minutes in the morning at around 11, then you get 15 minutes at 4, and then 30 minutes for lunch. So during my lunch break, I used to go and watch videos on how to do presentations, and I got PowerPoint, and I did a very, very, very poorly done PowerPoint, but it had all the substance. Had the problem statement, the solution, and how we execute, including training in cohorts and whatnot. And I'm not going to cost the company anything. I'm going to do this after work. So every cohort that comes, I'm going to come in early to train my team, and then I'm going to stay late to train the next team. So they liked it, and we implemented it. We took the average handling time from 180 seconds to 120 seconds.
Yeah, that's very good.
For a call center with 150 seats.
Yeah. So you're processing a lot more calls than
You're processing. The wait time came down again from, I think it was 4 minutes to 2 minutes and something. So it was a huge difference. Actually, if they wanted, we could have translated that actually to actual savings, because we could process the same amount of calls, and that happened a few months later with less people. So having a real impact in the company. So the chiefs really liked it, and oh my! Next thing I knew, I was being presented next to at the client, meetings, and they were saying, "Oh yeah, we have this innovator. He's here. Show them through, and the impact." And I put the statistics, etc, etc. Then something interesting happened because of that. I got promoted to be a quality analyst in my 2.5 months or so. then into a team leader in my 6th month.
Yeah, that's pretty
Record
impressive. That's a
record time in terms
nice.
of
Yeah.
climbing up the ranks. But it was just because I was dialed in,
Yeah.
just because I was obsessive about my job. Every time any company I've worked for, I have really avoided people who say two things. It's not my job. I don't have shares in this company.
Uh-huh.
If you have that kind of attitude, it's you're not going to really go far in your job. If you look at all the high achieving career people, they really take the company as if it is their own.
Yeah.
If you have that attitude, and that's the difference between, like, if you look at private versus government sector, and this incredible journey that I had started, that was evidence, because if you produce results, then you're gonna get more and more responsibility. Then the other funny thing that people get convinced about is, oh, most of the time when you get promoted very fast in these organizations, they don't give you the money.
Yeah.
They give you the role, and then you're on probation, and maybe most of the colleagues next to you are gonna be earning more than you, because probably they were poached from another company,
right,
etc.
and the
It's not
salaries
so
don't
much.
increase with the promotions.
Exactly. They don't increase as much, and there's going to be a lot of negative talk. So I never listened to that. I was like, hey, man, I don't care. I'm just doing something that is a little bit more interesting than what I was doing before. I'm learning, and I'm trying to contribute. Then after that, so now we did this thing, then got into team leadership, and that's really actually where my tech journey started. Because within team leadership, one of the things that you are responsible for was to consolidate all of the material that has been, you do a lot of surveys within the call center. So today maybe they're asking about a particular tariff. You need to do manual CSATs. So ask them. Back then we didn't have a lot of systems like we have today. You finish a call and then you get an SMS and then you do the rating.
Yeah.
We had to do the rating on the call.
Oh no.
So, and the CRM, most of the CRMs don't have those kind of very dynamic questions.
Yeah.
So you do this on Excel. Every time you open a shift, you prepare the Excel sheet, and then you send it out to the agents, and the agents fill it out. Then at the end of their shift, they send it back to you.
Yeah.
Then you compile it.
Yeah, that's pretty terrible.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
I can tell you, again, everything that I'm experiencing, remember, I'm from the village.
Yeah.
And I didn't used to speak as nicely as I do.
Yeah. Yeah, you're learning on the job.
Yes.
The
So even my accent and everything had to really apply myself. So you now spend a lot of time compiling this data. And I learned so many Excel tricks. Get import range from there and whatnot, and then VLOOKUPs just to try and manipulate the data, to do validation. Let me tell you, you can look an Excel to the T and add very stringent validations that have very many screens of and password protect Excel sheets.
Yeah.
But people will still figure out how to mess it up. That's the thing that I learned.
Yeah.
So out of this job now, now the guys who are training me, some of them had been there for a while. And when I joined the job, they were telling me, hey, this is the role. This is how you do it. You come in the morning, and then you spend your first 2 to 3 hours just compiling and wrangling this data. I was like, there has to be a better way.
Yeah.
There has to be a better way. So off again, Mr. YouTube. Off again to Google University.
Yeah.
So Google University, I learned, hey, there's this thing called you can build a system and then Excel forms and access database.
Yeah.
So I built that stuff and sent the data to the access data point, but I flopped within the second day.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yes, because access can only handle 5 concurrent connections.
You had, and how many did you have at the time trying to connect?
We
Like
have
the whole call center,
150.
150 guys. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, so there you go. My first scaling problem.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm there. I've worked so hard. I didn't know nothing about this thing. I'm just trying to read every night. I used to sleep very late.
Mm-hmm.
Probably was sleeping 2 to 3 hours, 4 max. Weekends maxed out. So actually, my whole life up until when I left campus has always been pretty much working. So then I realized, okay, I read somewhere in some blogs, some forums, instead of Access, you should use MySQL.
Yeah.
So, okay, I figure, fine, let me learn this thing. So I go, I start. It took me a bit longer, that
Yeah.
one.
More complicated for sure.
More
Yeah.
complicated. Took me about 3 months to build the product. I remember the journey when I was building that product. One day at night, at around maybe it was 1 a.m. On a Saturday, my girlfriend, my now wife, had come to visit me in my small den.
Yeah. Your bachelor pad. Yeah.
Yes, she'd come to visit me and she was asleep. She'd gotten bored
Mm-hmm.
because she's there. I'm not giving her any attention. I'm just busy on my
Programming
computer.
yeah.
Then I managed to install PHP my admin,
Mm-hmm.
and it worked. It was a big struggle back then because you had to compile PHP manually. You had to do a lot of configurations manually, and that thing was hell. So I managed to get that thing to work. My goodness, I was in so much
You
shock
start
and
shouting.
oh yes, I woke her up and I came and told her, come and look at how a database looks like.
Did she just tell you, like, leave me alone? I'm going to go back to
I
sleep?
couldn't let her. She had to come.
Wow.
I had bought a PC. I had built my own PC. Back then,
And
we
she
used
still
to,
married you after this as well.
yeah. Back then, we used to build PCs. So if you want to if you want to get a computer for cheap,
Yeah.
so you go and buy a motherboard, then you go and buy a case, then
Mm-hmm.
you go and buy hard disks and the chip,
Yeah.
etc, etc.
You built the whole thing.
You
Yeah.
build the whole thing. So I'd built one and I had my own rig now at home. I think I spent maybe like 15,000 or so, but it was a very capable
Yeah.
machine. Probably would have costed me maybe 50,000 if I went straight to the shop for those specs. So I showed her. She couldn't understand anything, but the thing I was telling her, this is the thing that runs the world. Because I mean, having learned how systems work, I could now start seeing databases everywhere. You go to a banking system and you see that thing has to talk to something like this. So long story short, so I took that thing, built it into a product, and now the calls were no longer being, the surveys were no longer being done on Excel. They were being done on
more automated for sure.
yes, on a browser.
Mm-hmm.
And you punch in the data, there's some drop downs, dependent drop downs, etc. I did some fancy things.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was so impressed.
Yeah.
I remember, and it was a very proud moment, but very tired, very, very worn out, very, I mean, I was burnt out, but I was very excited. When you're excited, you can really, really go and on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
So I know I do that thing, then I add something more. I go learn that within this telephony system, there's a parameter here where you can add a URL, and then the form will actually pop up when the system loads. So I figured out how to do. I didn't even know it was a get request URL back then, because again, I am fully self-taught.
Sure.
So I did it, and then it was magic. When the call pops up, it pops up with the form, and if the customer exists, you can see the last request and whatnot. It was magic. I mean, it blew up. I remember guys coming to me and telling me, you need to patent this.
Yeah. Well, and that's an interesting thing, because I think what you're showing here is that, like you mentioned, there's certain type of people that say it's not my job, right?
Absolutely, it's not my job.
Yeah, and then you saw a problem that was impacting your work. You're having to spend 2 or 3 hours every day, filling out the Excels and sending them out and collecting them and sending them back. And I've seen that happen a lot in businesses where you can, kind of automate these processes. But like most people are like, well, I wish it was easier, but it's not my job.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I remember we had one guy when I worked for the federal government, and when you worked for the federal government, you couldn't sack anybody.
Yeah.
So the paperwork was too much and all
Yeah.
the regulations. So this guy, he would come in, and first thing he would do is, okay, he'd make his coffee maybe for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
He'd bring the newspaper. He'd
Yeah.
read the newspaper for an hour.
Yeah.
Then he'd go right to sleep for napping for like 2 hours. Then he'd wake up and, it's lunchtime. He'd run and go for lunch for an hour or
For
two.
2 hours.
Come back, sleep again. And the only thing we could do is just wake him up and say, you're snoring too loud. Don't you're bothering the other employees.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, if it came time to like, maybe the big bosses, they would want some bureaucratic paperwork or something.
Yeah.
I need you to do this report, or I need you to do something that wasn't business important. It was like some paperwork. Then we would always tell the boss, like, oh yeah, I'll assign it to this guy to do.
Yeah.
Knowing that he wouldn't do it. But when the boss would come and say, like, why didn't this report get delivered?
Yeah.
You could say, well, I gave it to him to do. I don't understand,
Yeah.
Why this guy's not doing it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like this government lifestyle. There's certain things that would happen that,
Yeah.
so, and it's very different than what you're explaining here, where it's like, you saw a problem.
Yeah.
You need to be more efficient.
Yeah.
We need to get this stuff going.
Yeah.
And then you saved everybody a lot of time in the call center, and now they're coming and congratulating you and saying, hey.
Yeah, and actually that thing is not just in government, it's there in most organizations.
Yeah.
People they won't want to do anything more than they're paid for.
Right.
There are people who watch the clock.
Mm-hmm.
Paid hits 5 on the dot, they're out.
Oh yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But sometimes if you need to sometimes you need to move things and just to make things happen. And it just so happens that you need to have a shift in your mentality to be able to unlock that. Yeah, so a lot of people are coming to me and telling me, hey, you need to patent this, the company needs to pay. And I was like, no, I was having fun.
Yeah.
I learned something.
Yeah, and when you enjoy your work, it's not tiring, or you don't have to punch the clock,
Absolutely.
to have that mentality. I remember I worked at this place called NASA, the space agency.
Yes.
And one of the projects that I was doing, we were implementing these time clocks for like, at NASA they have guys that do they weld the metals, and they make all the these parts and run the whole facility and everything. So we had to finally, they used to have the paper time clocks where they would write, I leave at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
And we came and we were putting in the web-based one, the like a kiosk you would type. And so these guys, they had to leave exactly at 5 o'clock. So the first thing they did when we told them, okay, you're going to clock out at 5, well, they would have to make a queue. There's like 50 guys that would have to make a queue, and it would take about 3 to 4 minutes to get through the queue to clock out. So they kind of, it wasn't quite a lawsuit, but it was like they went to the boss and said, okay, now we have to leave work like 10 minutes early because we can't hit the button on the kiosk fast enough.
Yeah.
And then we had other guys who, then they realized it was a website. So what they would do is they would get in their vehicle and they would clock in and clock out from their vehicle instead of, so they would leave early and late. And then what they would also do is, maybe it was a big compound, thousands of acres, and a guy would, maybe his wife would work in the place as well, so he would walk 10 minutes and then clock out, where his wife was. So these guys, these people sometimes have mentalities of just like, I have to do step by step. I'm only going to do the work, I'm required to do.
Absolutely.
And speaking of that, I remember one time I called, it was like the internet provider. This was in the US as well. I don't think this would happen in Kenya, hopefully.
Yeah.
And, my internet was out or whatever the situation was. And the lady's trying to help me, and she can't help. It's one of these things that she doesn't know the right steps to debug, but she's trying to help me.
Yeah.
And then in the middle of the conversation, she says, "Sir, I'm going to leave the call for 20 minutes."
Oh, I see.
I said, "Why?" She said, "Well, it's my time I have to smoke my cigarette, and I'm allowed to smoke my cigarette for my break. So
Yes.
it's the time to smoke the cigarette. So I'm
Yeah.
going to go in and leave the call. And I'm,
Yeah. Yeah.
like you talking about the Patel guy, like getting
Yes.
so angry. You start
Absolutely.
shouting at this lady. What are you doing? My internet's down. I'm running the business. I got to have the internet up.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, it just goes to show there's something, and I think it's just the culture that you need to build in any organization, just to make sure that, because human beings are very interesting.
Yeah.
It's very likely, if I didn't have certain exposures or certain people that I was exposed to, or situations,
Yeah.
I don't deny I could have ended up like that,
Yeah.
so that's why in an organization, especially as young guys are coming in, you need to really, really be purposeful to make sure that you provide an environment. That's why I was saying,
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for that foundation that I got. It's that something like that at the call center. It's called Horizon Contact Centers. Wouldn't have been allowed. You
Yeah.
just get fired on the spot,
Yeah.
because it's just not the culture there.
Yeah.
Great. That's an extreme, but there's people who will just do sneaky things, like customer is complaining on the call, and then just I remember there's a popular saying that we had at the call center. Guys were saying, if you make noise at me, just remember I'm the guy with the red button. The red button was the disconnect.
It was the disconnect button.
Yes. So if someone used to complain, they would be like, okay, boom. They used to be very skilled.
Oh wow.
Very skilled at how to disconnect so that it looks like it's the caller who's done it.
Yeah.
So you just need to have the right mentality, right everything. And honestly, I would say I was also very fortunate in the people that I had around me, because here I was. My managers used to be very supportive. Like when now I did this system, it was a hit. Oh my!
Yeah.
Everybody loved it. The agents loved it. My managers loved it. The client loved me. By that time, we had left Orange, and I was in a much better account. At that time, it was U-Mobile. It used to be an operator that was bought by Safaricom and Airtel, split up. It was split up, and some assets sold to Safaricom and some sold to Airtel. So when I got there, the client liked it so much that they poached me. So I moved from the call center to now the client.
Yeah.
You would think, for many people, I mean, when you go to the client, it's the dream.
Right.
And I've done this in sort of record time.
Sure.
And most people, even now, so you move from call center, very young guys, you go to the telco, a lot more mature people. A lot of the guys who are in U-Mobile had actually come from Telcom, Orange then, because it was a government entity. And so you meet very established and very mature people. Basically, what I'm trying to say, it's a job you get. It's very close to a government job.
Right.
You can go and get comfortable at it.
Yeah.
You can build a very good life. You can get financing and get a plot, get a nice home, and be very stable and be very happy. And that was now the imagination of everyone, even even my folks.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be very clear if there is a way to top this up. But then, remember, I'm still a teacher.
Yeah.
I don't have any training in technology, but I've built this thing. Then I get a chance. And that's why you need to really be visible when you're young, contribute, and show value.
Yeah.
I got noticed by a lady called Bilha Otoma. Big shout out to her, because that was one of the other pivotal moments in my career. She needed to get someone to go on maternity leave, a lady called Irene. She's a good friend of mine. She needed to go for maternity, and then they needed a secondment. So she said, hey, I heard that you can code. You can do can you do SQL? Told her, I'm not sure,
Yeah,
but
sure.
but I can try. I can figure it out. So I went and joined the MIS team. That's like the analytics team for this telco.
Yeah.
Man, and then you go find these guys who are just when you are down there. The call center used to be at the basement.
Yeah.
then it used to be such a privilege for you to come out of the basement. And the basement was the outsourced part of the business.
Yeah.
For you to go to the upper floors, somebody hears that you are at the third floor. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
So you started working down in the basement?
Yes, I was at the basement.
Yeah.
And then when I got poached, I was still at the basement because I was doing back office support
Yeah.
for
So
the
they kind
on
of
the client
they
side.
kind of hide the nerdy guys down there. They don't want to
Exactly.
talk to the clients or anything.
Exactly. So guys talking to the clients, and then you escalate to this team, the back office team. And I'm truly grateful for my then boss, Kosta Chebet and Jane Siongok, who really allowed me to join that team on secondment for 3 months. But I was very clear in my mind, I am not going back.
Yeah.
It was 3 months. But
And so during that 3 months, you got to come out of the
I
basement?
was very sure. 3 months, you go up,
Yeah.
you cover for maternity.
Yeah.
Then the lady is going to come back. She's going to claim her spot,
Yeah.
right?
So you didn't want to go back down.
I told myself, I'm not going back. This is my shot.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, I learned that stuff in record time, like in 2 weeks. I was there. I used to work over the weekends. Saturday, Sunday, I was there. And truth be told, I didn't go back. Not only did I not go back, I remember most of the marketing stuff used to, and this is kind of where the shift now shifted to me now going into technology. Most of the marketing guys used to be from India, and they used to be consultants for either EY or KPMG. Very, 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 very sharp guys.
Yeah.
I mean, Excel wizards.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Because U-Mobile was an underdog. And this is why the analytics team was very, very important. We couldn't compete with the budget that Safaricom had for marketing. We couldn't compete also with the budget that and the reach and the distribution that Airtel had.
Right.
We were a much, much smaller business, but we needed to grow. So what we did was we used to do a lot of SMS campaigns to try and reach out to users. We had to configure products, like buy for 20 minutes, 20 shillings, and then you can speak the whole night, unlimited, and those kind of things.
Yeah, crazy bundles.
Data, packaging data, etc., etc. So those wizards, the Excel wizard guys, they really needed a lot of data.
Yeah.
So again, remember the culture everywhere. It's not always right. We used to have very hardworking guys,
right?
But not. And again, a lot of them were much older than me back then. So they have responsibilities, they have families, etc.
Yeah.
I'm just a newbie.
They might not be there.
I mean,
late
I'm
at
so
night.
hungry, and I just want to do this thing all the time. So I used to be there, available, and very shortly, it became known that I'm the quickest guy, most reliable. They can call me at night. They'll find me at the office over the weekend, etc., etc. And we became really good friends with these nerds. So they send me this, we need this analysis, and I would do the analysis and also give back suggestions.
Yeah.
I noticed this campaign, you did this one. So I would give a true data analyst report. Most of the time, most people, I learned from a few guys, but some of the guys, like one of the best guys that I've met, and the guy really nurtured me, is a guy called Peter Gituma. Mugambi, and but the art and I started reading on what's a really good analyst. So you analyze the data, you get a report, you get a request, give me the top performing campaigns for the last 30 days, or give me the pre-churn customers that we have today. From that data, do some more analysis, have suggestions, and connect it to some of the other requests that you had gotten.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I started to do. And guess what? When the 3 months ended, instead of going back, I went to marketing.
Yeah. They're like, we want you now upstairs all the time.
Not only that, I moved from MIS to product.
Yeah.
And that was my journey now into product management.
How you kind of transition there.
Yes. Again, I was stepping in for someone I was replacing someone at what was it? A quarter of the price.
Yeah.
Because they only added very little, like 20,000 shillings to my salary.
Yeah.
This other guy had left and had gone to Airtel. His name is Hilary, very skilled guy as well, but he just left.
Yeah.
And then I got put into this role, and everybody was like, "No, this is so unfair. Why are you accepting? These guys are just using you, because they think you're desperate and whatnot. And this guy was being paid X amount, and you're being paid X amount. It was literally I was being paid literally a quarter."
Yeah.
Or what the other guy
Yeah,
was
which is kind of
getting paid.
crazy, isn't it? I mean,
Yes,
that's
it is crazy, but again, money for me
yeah.
has never been really the thing that I chase.
Yeah.
We all need money and we need to live comfortable lives,
Sure.
but you need to disconnect yourself from the concept of always chasing money.
Yeah.
So the thing I was chasing for me was to advance and to get as broad experience and as much knowledge as I needed to get.
Yeah.
And so here I was at a very young age. I think at that point I was probably maybe 26 thereabout.
Yeah.
And I was the product manager for VAS, and VAS is big because VAS is data, SMS,
Yeah, exactly.
ringback tones and all of that. And I would plan these campaigns and I would work with the consultants, those wizards. They're still my friends. One of the guys called Golan Meta, very, very good friend. We're still in touch up to this day. And we had a crazy boss. His name is Amit. So I got that, and that's the thing that now launched me into fintech.
Yeah.
Because from that role, one of my bosses had left and gone to Cellulent and called me in, and that's the journey that
you got
took
into
me
Cellulent.
to now where I am at fintech. But it all started from that call center and me adding value to a script that moved from 180 seconds to 120 seconds.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting to see. I mean, I think it sounds like the advice that you're kind of giving the young people is like, you have to show up.
Yeah.
You have to, be hungry. You have to have nights,
Absolutely.
weekends.
Yeah.
You have to be the guy who, is there and wants to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And you're not concerned about how much you're making per hour.
Yeah.
Because you're working nights and weekends, you're not getting maybe compensated for that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
You may not be the highest paid person that's there.
Yeah.
But over time, when you learn and add value and learn skills,
Yeah.
that you got to be able to contribute something. Like if you want to be the
Absolutely.
boss now,
Yeah. Yeah.
you've got to know how things work. You've got to know.
Absolutely.
You've got to know how to do these things.
Yeah.
You can't be the boss and then
Yeah.
all your employees are not in the office and you need somebody to do SQL or
Yeah.
oh I don't know, I can't figure
You can
this
do
out.
it. Yeah. And I think I find with a lot of young guys nowadays,
Yeah.
there's a phenomena with Gen Zs, and our office is filled with them. We pretty much actually just have Gen Zs
Yeah.
in the office. It's just probably me and my co-founders who are not in that bracket.
Yeah.
But man, the generation is different.
Yeah.
And I noticed that even when I was doing a lot of hiring back in my role in Cellulent, you get these very young guys fresh out of campus, or maybe they just have 1 gig under the belt, and the number they throw at you, you're like, my goodness, how many years I had to work
to get to that point.
to get to that salary. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of I guess the world is changing, but there's a lot of some of them, not all. There are some who can back it up with skills.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem with paying. Even I've paid, even in my previous jobs, I paid more than I earn for a team member.
Yeah.
I have zero problem with that. So I don't have a problem with paying a young guy a lot. But for some, it's an issue of not taking the right path, and an issue almost like entitlement.
Yeah.
And I feel something is lacking if you don't really clock in the time and you don't really follow the process. Because for me, unfortunately, that's a template that I have and it's worked. Even some of my co-founder today, one of them, actually both of them, apart from now our chairman, they used to work in my team, at Cellulent, and I got them as very junior guys. And over if you look at where they were, interns earning 15,000 shillings a month, and it was very, very clear with them. This is what you get, but over time you're gonna grow. And one of the things that I had gotten was the ability to really defend your team. And HR never wanted to really see me when it comes to compensation and for my team, because I will come with facts, I will come with evidence of impact, etc., etc. And
well, it's like you said. I mean, you don't really mind paying somebody, even a young guy, a high amount if the results are there.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
This guy, he landed a new account. He's bringing in. I mean, you could pay a guy 1 million shillings if he's bringing in 2 million shillings. Okay.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
that would be kind of rare, right? But I think you're saying it's like the guys who come and say, hey, I'm not really bringing anything to the table other than maybe I give you a report every once in a while or something, and now I need, how about 500,000? That sounds good.
So I mean, I make it, and I always make that. I don't let those opportunities go. I always make them a learning lesson. For them, and I told them, I don't tell them the whole story. I tell them a bit of my story, and also for the story of a few guys. For instance, some of the guys that we started with, I remember I was telling you I did investing, and I would do advisory for some of these companies. So part of the things that I was doing, part of the advisory and hands-on board member role, is helping with recruitment. So you need to get the right mix of culture, attitude, temperament, aptitude, right? Again, some of those guys, you start very low, but today it's an incredible journey. What they're earning today, it's like night and day. There's no problem. You will get, if you get the right company. There's some companies that will be exploitative. But if you get people that you can really, that really get this, there's no limit what you can become in the company. There's no limit how much you can earn in the company.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's pretty exciting. I mean, I think the younger generation have a lot to learn from your experience. And I mean, I think you're an example of, like you said, you start from the call center. And that's not like a big starting job. You're just there.
Just grind and add value.
I mean, I remember in the US, a lot of the guys I know who end up being more successful, when they're young, they do these jobs that are, not so exciting, or not even, I work on a farm and I give the pigs the food, or I work at the KFC, frying the chicken, or whatever it might be, some of this kind of hard work that's not so exciting. We'll go out and do construction works and things like that. But it kind of builds that character, teaches you how to work hard, show up, do the job, not complain about it, and that just learn how to add value.
Sure.
So it's exciting.
But I think one of the big things is, if you can get it in yourself I think you need motivation. In anything that you do, you can't just say, I'm going to work hard. You're going to get bored very soon. So you need to set yourself a big goal and put a timeline to that big goal. In all of these projects that I've talked about, I had a timeline to achieving it. Like that thing for I'm not going back. I knew my window is 3 months. I'm back to the dungeon, or I stay up here with the elites, so to speak, quote unquote, because they used to earn much higher than us. I mean, the office used to have more natural light. It was a bit depressing in the basement.
They probably have the better tea and coffee station.
And it was stuffy actually. It was a bit damp, so it was just a little bit not too nice down there. And one of my colleagues back then, she's actually just joined our team. She's the head of business development for us at Lipad today. So so you give yourself a big goal. Like for instance, when I joined Cellulent, again, if you obsess about work. So when I joined Cellulent, I was a product manager for VAS, like I mentioned. But during Cellulent has a very interesting culture. I'm a huge fan of them, and I really cheer them on. I really hope that I'm really cheering them to be the next unicorn in fintech. They one of the things is that you're taken around to various leaders of the business, especially if you're coming to head a unit. Like I was coming to head the VAS unit as a product manager. So I go around to these guys, they listen to me, they listen what I'm picking up. I had so many things I was talking about, etc, etc, etc. And then they say, no, let's take you to this other thing we're starting. We think you're going to be a good fit.
Yeah.
It was a monstrous thing. Convincing, and that was my foray now with banks. Getting data from banks, figuring out how to analyze the data. There are no tools. It's not like today where, you can very easily sort of get libraries for NumPy and do a lot of data analysis, machine learning, etc, etc. Maybe we didn't know, but we had to do a lot of hand rolling. And in 6 months, we had a product. We started selling it and became profitable. The thing sailed, and you just make a name for yourself constantly as a solution guy, or as the guy to do, like for me, what I got known for was the guy to launch new projects. I very much suspect I'm still in that phase, I still, like for instance, and I keep telling my guys, I don't think I'm going to be the CEO for Lipad in the next 3 years.
Sure.
I think my job is to launch and scale it, and then we need to get somebody to scale it to some point, and then we need to get somebody to scale it all across Africa. We probably will be in maybe 3 or 4 countries. But then we need somebody to scale it to 20 countries. And that's probably not going to be me. I know myself. I get very excited for something that has, I can see a goal. Like for my goal with this, because it's a big challenge, is 3 years. And once that's done, we'll be ready to now get some fresh blood. I'm very passionate about it. I don't know what I will do after. Probably I'll just hang around and I don't know, I'll go do product work or something. I don't know, or join another venture. I'm not too sure. But I have a 3-year time frame. It's very, very clear. So set goals and be very clear and communicate those goals. Let everybody know. So because after we were successful with that and we launched a marketing automation platform, which is called Caviar, like the fish eggs.
The very high end.
Yes, exactly.
Product.
The high end product. So we got a fancy name for it. I remember we had concocted a name, consumer activation, I don't know what, value addition something. It was like cover something. Then I remember pitching it to Kenya, just call it Caviar.
Nice.
And then that's what we called it and took it to market. Was a good hit. Then after that we launched Mula. Now this is an interesting
It was a pretty
thing.
big product, wasn't it?
Yes. So now this was my first foray into, and nobody told me. So I would say my experience running a business is probably maybe 6, 7, 8 years. Because that's the time that I have been running products as a business unit fully. Cellulent is very unique in the sense that I think now there's a lot more processes and governance, etc, etc. But with, especially with the initial DNA, we had to really work with very limited resources. And it's very widely spread. So management ability to go into the details for every business unit, for everything you do. So you get responsibility and then you report up. So I got the responsibility to launch a new product. It was called Mula, rebranded to Ting later, which is a B2C product, new venture into the company, because we had accumulated all these integrations for banks and mobile money, airtime, bill payments, all across Africa. And we were giving it to banks. Then we figured, hang on, this thing, we can actually turn it into a business for us and go directly to the customer. So we built an app in a short period of time, 3 months or so. Then took it to market. I was given a budget of around, I would say, $30,000 a month. At some point, we got increased a little bit to, and this is tiny because it is spread across 5 markets.
Sure.
So what you're getting per market is a little just over $5,000 a month.
Okay.
And this you need to do on-ground activation. You need to get agents, flyers, you need to do SMS marketing.
Yeah.
If
It's a big
you need to
business.
figure out how to do radio ads and whatnot. So we had to be incredibly creative. So that took me back to U-Mobile.
Yeah.
You know, all the guerrilla marketing that you were doing.
Yeah, that's
So
crazy.
came back to apply it. And that baby really, really is a huge asset for the company because it's just a nice little tidy business that we didn't have to spend too much on and continues to grow. It has 500,000 customers. Unfortunately, we had to sort of change the model because the goal for it was too big. It was very big.
Sure.
We needed to build the super app for Africa. So you need to also, it's a nice business because it generates a lot of value. You know, about $2 million, I remember, in terms of annual revenue. It's very tidy business, very nice. But the ambitions for the business are 200 million a year or $500 million a year. For you to get there, the unfortunate reality that we came to realize was if you look at the mechanics and how much we had spent, we need now to spend about $300 million or $200 million in marketing to get that sort of 500 million. And
Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
not, the capital was not accessible, etc, etc. So we had to leave it there, and then it's just a nice, tidy business now that just gives returns back to the company and without a lot of investment.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I know a lot of these companies, want to start the super app of Africa,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
it's a big thing investors like sometimes.
absolutely.
The dream is there. And
Yeah,
I know even with Sepota, we had pivoted at some time from ride hailing to be
absolutely.
like the super app.
Yeah,
And we did the same thing. We scaled back,
yeah,
to focus a little bit more on ride hailing, just realizing the reality of the
yeah,
amount of capital and money required to
yeah,
make something like that happen,
yeah,
because it's every little piece has to fit into place. Maybe the payroll onboarding and
yeah,
the on and off ramps of money getting into wallets, and
yeah,
connecting with merchants. And
correct.
I mean, it's just so
Yeah,
much that, like
yeah,
you said, all that marketing is
yeah.
it's just, yeah, it's so
You,
much agents and all that type of stuff. It's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Probably somebody will figure it out, but
Mhm.
it is so appealing, especially when you look at what's happened in the East. You know,
Yeah.
Gojek. You
Yeah.
look at Ali, WeChat, Alipay.
Yeah.
You look at all those examples. Incredible business model they've been able to conjure up.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of, you need a lot of capital to be able to fully execute that.
Yeah.
And the other thing people often assume, and we made that mistake even though we are African, but of course also our investors got very excited about
Yeah.
it. We got very excited, but you forget that Africa is not one country.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard to make everything talk together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Plus the regulations here and the APIs for all these different billers and this mobile money, these banks are completely different market by market by
Yeah.
market. So it's not one market. It's not like China, a billion guys.
Yeah.
Africa has a billion people, but man, there's
Different
50.
languages,
Yes,
different.
I mean, it's a lot harder to do. Hopefully, I'm cheering it on because I think hopefully somebody will crack it. I
Yeah.
think Ioba is trying to have a crack at it. I still think they have a long way to go because I've tried the product, but I really sincerely hope that somebody will crack it because it can be a really
Yeah.
nice market, or just
Lucrative thing.
focus on one market.
Yeah.
Like Nigeria is a big enough market, Kenya is a big enough, Egypt, South Africa. Pick one market and really go in and try to dominate in that market.
Yeah.
But see telcos now going in that direction. So it
Sure.
sort of makes it harder for a fintech.
Well, it's hard. Like, here we have Safaricom, right?
Yeah.
They dominate pretty much the market,
Absolutely.
and they want to keep their domination, so
Yeah.
they're not going to let you come in and undercut them with a super app, easy, in an easy way. I
Yeah.
know there's lots of guys trying, right?
Yes,
So
there's lots of guys trying. Yeah.
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 Well, I mean, given all of that, so what's next for your Lipid company? Like, what's the
Yeah, so what's next for us is actually just being on the road more. I mean, we think we have a fantastic product. We have about four institutions that we've signed up today. We are actually also dog fooding the product, so we've partnered with one of the PSPs locally, so that we can be able to do collections powered by them. We believe a lot in dog fooding, so in the sense, dog fooding is you build a product and then you test it yourself.
okay? Yeah.
So we get our own merchants, of course, powered by the PSP and the contracts with the PSP, but where the interface, we acquire these merchants and we listen to their feedback so that we know the product that we're giving banks and PSPs to sell actually works and it solves the problem. We find that sort of feedback cycle is faster. So really looking forward to scaling this and getting new partners. Yeah.
And you mentioned that you just recently started the company. It's like a fairly new thing, right?
Yeah.
And have y'all raised any kind of money, anything like that? Or are you just
No.
bootstrapping and
Bootstrapping.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I would say the company is 8 months old in terms of since we opened the doors, but it's a little bit older in terms of how long we formulated the
yeah,
thoughts, the business structure, and also the relationships that we built.
Yeah.
Like by the time I was leaving, it was very clear the customer that the only thing I needed to do was to sign, deploy the team, and get things moving
Yeah.
in a short period of time. Because everything, again, there's a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience. So we're able to really get off the ground very quickly and get that.
Yeah, it would be hard to, I guess, leave your job without some kind of knowledge about what the next steps were going to be.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. But my experience, like I was saying, experience running businesses or sort of mentoring, funding businesses goes way back. And yeah, I was pretty sure about the decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think you guys will try to raise money at any point, or you can try to go
Yes,
as far as you can?
we will probably raise money right around the time the goal that I have set for myself.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. For us to expand to 20 plus markets, the biggest cost is going to be sales.
Yeah.
So I see ourselves, once we really do a lot of the product market fit and we're able to really dominate the local scene and a few markets within our region, for us to be able to really, really reach 20 plus markets in the whole of Africa, we will need to raise. But I am keeping it up until that stage where we actually really need the capital. A lot of, and I don't want to raise money that it's not seed capital.
Right.
It won't be. So it should be a substantial amount for, that really reflects the value that we'll have created. And yeah, it should really be capital that is used to truly grow the business. I find, and there's no template that is wrong. We all know the success rates for seed capital. It's hit or miss, right? And it's because you get funded, but you don't have customers. You're trying to build the product at that point. You're trying to sell at that point. It's not the right space that I want to start dealing with investors.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Well, that sounds like you're kind of ready for success now. And
absolutely. We're already successful for the short period of time because, like I mentioned, we have 4 partners, 3 that are live today, generating revenue already. We just need to grow that revenue over the next few months, and then now we can talk to a lot more partners, etc.
Okay, great. That sounds really good. Well, I guess that's about all the questions I have for you today.
Yeah.
Are there any other topics you want to cover before we end for today?
So I would say there's something that I mentioned about what else? About mentorship. So I'm I would really just want to emphasize that point. If you're young and upcoming, really get a mentor. I'm very proud because I make my mentor proud today because I check in. Recently, I got one from a very interesting source. So my best man in my wedding runs a cleaning shop.
Yeah.
It's called Maina, just like me.
Yeah.
So they're called Stemain, and I noticed they're very excellent. They're in Carrefour. And I noticed something interesting. There's always someone cleaning the floor every time I go. It's not the same thing I see at Quickmart, or I don't know who's their supplier. It's not the same thing I see at Naivas, but I always find there's somebody cleaning a spot somewhere, always without fail. And they're smartly dressed. When you ask them, it's like staff for the supermarket. They know. I suppose I didn't know what the magic was.
Right.
So they know products where they are. They are more helpful. If you don't find the regular stuff, you can ask them and they'll actually be helpful.
Yeah. They'll tell you where the soaps are.
Exactly. So I found that thing to be really curious. So I called him and I told him, hey, I think you know something that I don't. So you want to tell me more about this? So he told me his journey. It was an incredible journey. I'll probably plug you in so that you can have him on the podcast. Very incredible journey that he's had. And he explained to me the processes that he's had to go through, how they do the layout for the supermarket, how they zone, how they built an app for check-in, clock out.
Really? Just an app just for the guys?
For the guys, yes. So you really have to be excellent.
Yeah.
My lesson is, even when you're picking out mentors or advice in the industry, it doesn't have to be in the industry you're in. So long as you can see excellence, go for it. And you will always learn something. You will always learn something from that conversation. The other thing that is really keeping me excited, sort of, because now Lipad is my full-time job, but I still have my family time and weekends. I really am spending a lot of time thinking about sort of AI and the impact it will have. There's a lot of noise and hype around it, but I really, try to think what's the next level and what impact can it have for Africa. So I recently invested in a company. They're called Hashtag, that they're building collaborative engagement platforms for companies internally that incorporates AI when it comes to engagement. So if you have staff and one of the biggest problems for CEOs, I suffer from this today. I really try to drill down the message and the vision to our tiny staff of 12, where we are going. So now imagine an organization with 100 employees. The job is 10 times harder, right? So they've built an incredible product that tries to ease in that journey through AI. AI is used in the sense that you can pour in content and then it can make it better, more productive, summarize it. Then at the end of that, can create questions that people can interact with, gamify, have engagements and polls. And one of the things that we are engaging with the team at the moment, and my input to the team, as I said, I'm an active board member for any venture that I get into. So we're spending a lot of time with them. One of the things that I'm trying to convince them is to actually pivot this whole thing, because this is a very big product, to just CEO's desk. So people can interact and get the vision from the CEO. And if you look at it in terms from a sales perspective, you just have to sell to one guy in every organization, and the guy you're selling to is the decision maker.
Yeah, that's the easiest way to do it, I guess.
Absolutely. So that's really exciting me, the AI space and what we can do around it meaningfully. and several other interests. Family is a big part.
Yeah,
You know, as I grow older,
you finding
I
you're trying to spend more time with the family now as
absolutely
you're.
I'm trying to pay back.
Mhm.
So most of the weekends now you'll find me home. Yeah, just trying to raise my two daughters and son. My wife is a lot happier now. But when I'm not doing that, I spend time with
What
the small cohort of founders that I have that I've invested in.
what's more challenging, raising the kids or running the company?
Oh, I think right now, um, I would say running a company is harder.
Yeah,
Raising the kids is more delicate
yeah,
than hard because we are a partnership. I have my wife; she's helping me. I'm incredibly grateful because there was a long period where I was there but absent
yeah,
because I was really absorbed in my work.
mhm,
Now I try to be more present.
yeah,
But there's a lot of tag team there, but it's very delicate.
yeah.
You'll come home and then realize that stuff's changed. You realize that, oh, your son has lost a tooth. Oh, okay. How long has that been? You're told 3 days.
You didn't even notice for 3 days.
Yes, so I try. And kids actually pick this up.
Yeah,
So you try to be very intentional, do movie dates and things like those, and
yeah,
spend more. You can't just throw time. You need to throw it quality wise.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So that's an interesting thing. Other than that, I pretty much, yeah, don't have. I have a few interesting guys that I will let you speak to. I think I've mentioned my
yeah,
my mentor. There's the guys that I've invested in recently. Hashtag. There's another one I'm speaking to right now.
mhm.
So I just try to throw some seeds here and there.
Sure. Well, that's what we try to do here. We try to connect the community
Yes.
here because
Yeah.
it's one thing I've learned from doing this podcast is we have so many people doing interesting things
Yeah.
out there, and we don't
Yeah.
always see what everybody's doing because
Absolutely.
it is a big city. I mean, Nairobi's a huge place,
Yes.
millions of people,
Yeah.
lots of projects happening,
Yeah.
and but what's interesting is this network of entrepreneurs is, yeah, it's not huge. I guess
Yeah.
there's it's a subset of the population. So
Yes.
and we need those connections because everybody's trying to do business and trying to make things grow, and
Yeah.
we need each other to be able to have those partnerships and
Yeah.
connections. So it'd be really
Absolutely.
good to talk to other guys that are out there, going through the same struggles and going through all these challenges
Yeah.
to make it here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been great having you on the show. We've really enjoyed the talk. I think we've learned a lot of things.
Yeah.
We've learned how to really get the gold out there in the
Absolutely.
market, and you've taught us lots of valuable things. So, yeah, it's been a pleasure to have you, and hopefully we can do this again sometime. And
Absolutely.
look forward to talk to you again. So yeah, thanks for coming on, and yeah, we'll see you next time, I guess.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks everyone, and thank you so much for having me on. It was my first podcast. I hope I
You did
won't
very
put
well.
your audience to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.